circling back to some of the things that we discussed on CBS Sports Network, but also hitting a lot of the ones that we did not. Let's take a look at some of the quarterback battles to know. So let's begin with the Michigan Wolverines, where, as we've said before, you've got lots of different options, but very little proven, at least in terms of being effective as a passer. So I know that there's a belief that a lot of us share that if you go with Orji, then you are committing to a very much like ground and pound, run focused type of offense. Do you think, Danny, that would be a limiting call? Like if Orji is announced as the starting quarterback day after the spring game, do you feel like what Michigan's going to look like offensively?
Yes, but I don't think it matters who they announce at quarterback. I think I know what they're going to be offensively. It's going to be what we've seen with Sharon Moore under Jim Harbaugh. I mean, and there's been I heard on First Take this morning, they were arguing about J.J. McCarthy not throwing the ball against Penn State. Yes, he was hurt, but I mean, it did show you Sharon Moore's dedication to running the football, maybe even more significant than what Jim Harbaugh had. They've got Donovan Edwards back. They're going to have a good offensive line, even with the losses. I feel like this is a place where you have to trust the development of the linemen. And even when they had J.J. McCarthy, who is going to probably be a top, I'm not buying in the odds, by the way. I think he's going to be a first-round draft pick. They didn't throw it that much. So I don't think you're going to have whoever's the quarterback exposed that much. 18 to 24 pass attempts a game early where they're kind of figuring it out. I think the more interesting thing is that I don't think they do name a starter after the spring. And they've had the luxury of being able to have quarterback battles play out. They don't have that this year with Texas looming week 2. My expectation is that you'll probably see multiple quarterbacks in the first month of the season as this kind of plays itself out.
Yeah, I've talked about this a lot. I do think that they are going to be active in the portal after the spring, unless somebody really has a tremendous spring and you really takes, the job over. I think that you'd be probably doing yourself a bit of a disservice if you don't at least put some feelers out there, even if you don't ultimately end up bringing somebody in. But I think that, like we talked about at the top of the show, the Rod Moore injury, I think that only further impacts the likelihood that this will be a very much a ground and pound kind of offense, just to keep that defense off the field as much and just kind of do the the complementary football kind of thing. And I've also talked about too, when you watch Michigan tape, going back to what you're saying, Danny, about Sharon Moore and what they like to do, their run game is far more complex than their passing game. Like, it is clear what they care about when it comes to putting together a playbook and a scheme for an opponent. So yeah, I think you're ultimately going to lean that. And I think that gives Alex Orji a bit of an edge. It's just Alex Orji is going to have to throw the ball at some point, or else it's going to become really easy to stop your offense. And we have not seen Alex Orji do it. They have called plays where he was supposed to throw it, and then he tucked it and ran because either it wasn't there or he just, a lot of young quarterbacks just make that decision. I'm just going to run the ball and rely on my athleticism. So you need to see him take a step forward if this offense is going to be capable of winning 9-10 games.
I tend to agree with all of that. The only thing I'm curious about is, are you going to bring in a new quarterback post-spring? And because that implies like you have a guy who's a pretty clear upgrade over what you have, right? You already have sort of the I've played a million years of college football, somewhat knowable floor in Jack Tuttle. You got Denegal, who's a bit of a wild card. Orji, obviously.
What about the former walk-on? I've been ignoring Davis Warren for all of these like graphics and all of these articles. I mean, is that unfair to Davis Warren?
Unfair to Davis Warren, sure. Unfair to reality, I doubt it.
Okay.
Who is out there to go get? Who is not currently a starter? It'd be clear that Michigan's a way upgrade for them.
That's a starter.
Like the one that was pretty notable that teams were trying to make a run at was Hennigan at Memphis.
But
Hennigan would be an upgrade.
Yeah, but he's not really a fit.
I think Hennigan's a clear upgrade over what they have.
Yeah.
Would Devin Brown be?
I was thinking that too a little bit, where you look at the two guys. If you look at Ohio State's QB battle, it's really Will Howard, and then there are the two freshmen in, Sayin and Noland. And Keinholz and Brown are probably not going to win the starting job. And when they don't, they're probably going to hit the portal. And I do think that's somebody that Michigan would be worth kicking the tires on at least. But again, is Devin Brown really any different than Alex Orji? We don't know.
I don't know what their internal grade was on. I'm trying to think about guys who like were highly regarded recruits coming out and what Michigan might have thought of them. But like we'll get to Iowa State probably tomorrow if we do Big 12 tomorrow. But like JJ Cole, is he going to stick around under Beck? Like Beck was just a freshman last year. Common sense says, how long are you going to wait forever on that one? I mean, this is kind of tough, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's crazy to go get somebody, but if you go get somebody, it better be like a very clear upgrade over what you have in the room and somebody who can pick up your system fast.
Although I will say, just to play devil's advocate, push back a little bit. Last year with Bama, spring game looked awful. What are we going to do? They go out and upgrade after, or thought they upgraded, and paired him with his old offensive coordinator with Tommy Rees. And then all of a sudden, like we see some of that, and then the dust settles, and Jalen Milroe ends up being the guy anyway. I do think there is some room for Orji to improve as just the wildcat guy who all of a sudden, given the opportunity, develops, and that you could see him struggle this spring and panic ensues. And then, you get out there and all of a sudden it's full contact and they're going and he's better than a disaster.
That's implied, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's no way that Michigan's going to run him out there if he's not seriously improved as a passer from what he showed last year. I wouldn't think.
Right.
I mean, he didn't show anything last year.
Right. That's
so
fair.
They didn't ask him to do anything. So yeah, I'm absolutely willing to entertain it. How about the Caden Proctor? Is there a quarterback who transferred who would then transfer again? Because you can. Because right now in 2024, there could be a quarterback who we looked at and we're like, man, that was such a big get. Dante Moore, you've got your quarterback of the future. What if Dante Moore winds up at Michigan?
I thought you were thinking Cade McNamara.
oh no, what about Kyle McCord?
Right. Yeah, that would be hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, there's like I'm just existing in this new world after the Caden Proctor era is in full effect. We could see somebody transfer in December, go through a spring practice, and then transfer to Michigan, and all of a sudden we're changing our whole tune about the offense.
What would that do to the psyche of Ohio State fans if Kyle McCord transferred to Michigan and then beat Ohio State?
What if you're I'll throw a name out there. I don't want to throw any teams under the bus, but Malik Murphy. Like, he was somebody who went to Duke because of the education. Like, Michigan's a great degree. I mean, I could see him being an upgrade.
Not sure. That
right.
Malik Murphy had a really tough
2 games.
Like his stock price and
my goodness.
Yeah. Like his stock price, if he had not had to start, would have been so much higher than if he hadn't gotten out there and just kind of had a rough couple games when Quinn Ewers was hurt. But could be another one right there, especially when you start to think about the way that Sharon Moore might want to piece together that offense. All right, I don't want to bore us. Like, for the Buckeyes, it's Will Howard, right? And if it's not Will Howard, they've got problems.
Yes.
Fair.
Agreed.
I would push back a little bit. Like, there is some chance that Brown, just because he hasn't been able to stay healthy, has a level in him that we just haven't been able to see because the sample set's so small. I mean, he got hurt almost immediately in the bowl game, so we really haven't seen
availability is a pretty key ability, and Devin Brown has not shown the ability to stay.
He got hurt last spring, and it wasn't that a hand thing too. I mean, it's just it's either bad luck. I hate calling players injury prone. That's like not fair.
No, but I mean, history is what history is. I mean, he's been hurt a lot. It doesn't mean he's soft. It just means he gets hurt.
There just wasn't a great portal quarterback class this year. I mean, like your top guys are dudes who, for the most part, it's like, okay, am I going to go 7th round to the NFL, or am I going to stay one more year and collect, somewhere between 850 and like 1.3, which the choice is fairly obvious there. But it's not like Will Howard's an obvious NFL guy. But I do think maybe we can read in a little bit to Brown being unable to beat out Kyle McCord like that, because Ohio State clearly didn't think much of McCord, because like the reports are that they were going to like not only not give him a bump in NIL, but give him like a bump down. So that kind of tells you what their opinion of the player was.
Daquan Finn to Ohio State. Let's go. No, I'm just kidding.
Daquan Finn to Michigan.
Daquan Finn to Michigan. Not a bad one either. All right, for Oregon, I mentioned Dante Moore. I've got to think that if you get somebody of Dylan Gabriel's experience and production, you're at least putting him in there. It feels like a perfect stylistic fit when we imagine what Bo Nix did, sort of how he handled his business within the flow of the offense. He's going to be able to get the ball out quickly, deliver it on time, put it in space. You've got Evan Stewart transferring there as well, so that, we just saw like one of the best, receiving rooms that we've had at Oregon in a really long time. So it looks like that could put together. But do you give any chance to Dante Moore to be able to unseat Dylan Gabriel for QB1?
No.
I'd be pretty shocked.
Yeah. That would just be like injury or something awful has happened.
Yeah, Dante Moore's not playing unless they're up 30 in the fourth quarter or Dylan Gabriel's hurt.
Bud, what about Washington? I need you to help me because there was a lot of ins and outs here. We had a lot of commits, decommits, jumping. We had multiple quarterbacks who are on Washington spring roster jump into the portal and then get back. We've got one player who committed to the Huskies initially. Is that Williams or Davis? And then one of them came with Jed Fish from Arizona. And then there's Will Rogers, who, of course, was recruited by Kalen DeBoer, former Mississippi State quarterback. I'm not ready to give Will Rogers these surefire QB1 duties, especially with a new coaching staff in place.
Especially with a new offensive line in place. I mean, like, Washington is going to lose, 3 or 4 draft picks off that offensive line, including a couple guys who are...
And then 2 transfers. It's all 5 starters.
Yeah. So Will Rogers, from the standpoint of Jed Fish's offense, like Fafita, if you trust PFF's like big time throw rate, was dead last among qualified quarterbacks last year, depending on how you sort it. But like clearly making big time throws, and if you've seen Fafita in person, like he's kind of tiny, like not a real prerequisite. Like Will Rogers does not have an elite level arm. He's kind of a distributor, on time guy, which Fish has been able to work with before. But how is he avoiding pressure? Because like the ball's out pretty quick in that air raid system that Mike Leach, RIP, ran last year for Mississippi State, a lot worse. Damon Williams is a really, really accomplished high school player. I don't know, like, as far as eventual upside, if it's crazy good, but he is pretty damn mobile. He has played a lot of high school football. So among like the true freshmen here, I could see him. Maybe you do use him some, especially because of the likely pressure you're going to face from the pass rush. Because that's, man, that offensive line situation is yeesh.
I think it's going to be Will Rogers, simply from the fact that Rogers transferred there. He was in uniform during the title game on the sideline. And then DeBoer leaves. Rogers re-enters the transfer portal, and they talked him into staying. I'm guessing part of those talks to get him to stay were, listen, you're entering the spring as the number 1 QB. It's your job to lose. So I'm guessing that'll be a situation. I don't know if he's going to be there all season, but I would anticipate that when Washington takes the field for the first time in 2024, Will Rogers is your starting quarterback.
I think anybody that's played as much football as he has, I don't know if the upside is there at all. I don't know if it's going to translate at Washington, but I would expect him to win the job because of the security of having an experienced veteran who's been out there.
Yeah, because like your offensive line is gone. All your receivers are gone. Your running back is gone. That is going to be a very young, inexperienced group. Having somebody who has played as many snaps as Will Rogers is going to come in very handy for a new coaching staff with a lot of new players.
And just to get this straight on the air, is it DeMarcus or Demarcus Davis? The tall, lanky quarterback who's from California.
Find out when he's good.
Right.
I don't know that I ever actually had to interview him. Like I've seen his huddle, but I don't.
That was the other one in there where I'm just like, okay, sure. I mean, if things don't go well with Rogers, there's somebody who's, because both he and Williams are 4-star prospects. So they are not, they are blue chip prospects. They have decent scouting reports, both with things like needs to grow into body, which,
Oh, he's definitely skinny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would like to see him be in that college nutrition program for a little bit. All right. What about at Nebraska? Because I mentioned this and I remember it was met with like, oh, they've got an interesting quarterback battle. And I think the response was interesting is one way to look at it. You've got Dylan Raiola. You've still got Arberg. I mean, Danny, what do you think Matt Rule's going to end up doing? Is he going to go with the prized recruit and just throw him out there right away, and then you save your run first option as the backup in case it doesn't go well, or do you go with the high floor off the jump and then wait for the ceiling to be able to get a little more comfortable?
Raiola's not there
right now.
Yeah, he didn't go spring. That's one.
Oh, he is.
He is there.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So he's able to get because if he wasn't, I'd be like, man, that's gonna be a long. I don't know. I have to see how it plays out because I think it all depends on how much he's going to, how fluent is he with the language of the system, how comfortable he is. If there's any doubt, if he looks green, like he's not ready, you go with what you've got. And then you kind of transition and kind of sprinkle him in there. And if the season's coming off the rails, then you throw him to the Wolves and say, all right, we're building for the next year.
I have no doubt in my mind how this one is going to play out. I no offense to Heinrich Arberg, but we've seen that. We know what the Nebraska offense was with that. It was a whole lot of turnovers. Like he came in to replace Jeff Sims and was like, you know what? You think Jeff Sims fumbles a lot? Watch this. And he was turning the ball over like crazy. You bring in Dylan Raiola. He is your, the savior of the program. He is the latest Nebraska savior. If he's everything he's supposed to be, you are only going to have him for 3 seasons. If he stays, at Nebraska, doesn't enter the portal. But just saying, he's got 3 years of eligibility before he's going to the NFL. You're not letting him sit on the bench for a year just so you could start him next year. You've got year 1 out of the way. Nebraska, it's not like they're anticipating winning the Big Ten this year. You're going to throw Raiola out there and you're going to let him learn how to play football. You're going to let him get reps. Maybe you only go 6-6, but that would be huge for Nebraska. That's a step forward. So I look at this as Dylan Raiola is Nebraska's starting quarterback. They may not officially call him that until closer to the season, but he is their starting quarterback.
Their schedule opens up, UTEP, host Colorado, Northern Iowa, Illinois, at Purdue, host Rutgers, at Indiana. Like it does open up pretty damn easily.
Yeah,
they're going to push around a lot more of those teams than they won't.
Yeah, and I wrote this because I had to do the Big Ten spring previews with the big questions face. Dylan Raiola doesn't need to be great to be a huge upgrade over what Nebraska had at quarterback last year. He just needs to be slightly below average, and that will do wonders for that offense.
What else? Bud, I'll let you get sort of grab bag first. Wherever you want to take us in the Big Ten, Minnesota, Maryland.
I'm going to throw a couple out here, and I'm just going to end each sentence with right.
Okay,
Drew Lohr is the guy at Penn State, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tyler Van Dyke is the guy at Wisconsin, right?
Yep.
Yes.
McNamara at Iowa. They're saying he should be back to action in June. He's the guy.
He
right?
freaking better be.
Okay, because I have got all eyes on
Pillsbury throw boy back.
I'm eyes on Iowa. Yeah. For the spring portal. I'm eyes on Iowa. Here's one for you.
How did we not hear Pillsbury throw boy for the season?
We did.
We did?
Yeah, it was the Jared Lorenzen comp.
Yeah.
Well,
remember poor man's Jared Lorenzen?
Well, yeah, Fat Joe Milton, poor man's Jared Lorenzen. Yeah. I had forgotten Pillsbury throw boy.
We need to give Deacon as many nicknames as that Indiana State kid has. What's Avila?
Yeah.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Stevie Bird or Stevie Nerd,
Larry Nerd, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Yeah.
Is MJ Morris for sure the guy at Maryland, or does Billy Edwards actually have a shot there?
To me, that situation, I feel like if you're MJ Morris, and for those who don't know, he takes over the starting job at last year at NC State, starts 4 games, and then says he wants to sit because he wants to preserve the year of eligibility, and then he transfers to Maryland. Is MJ Morris making all those moves if he isn't at least reasonably assured that the starting gig is his?
I'm not sure that that I want to imply rationality to decisions people make, but I'm not sure that every move MJ Morris made sense last year. So
I don't disagree.
Maybe he is, but I don't know. All right. Indiana, really a pretty interesting one. So Curtis Rourke pre-injury was awesome. And I don't think Indiana would have ever had a shot to get a guy like Rourke pre-injury. Post-injury, not as good. Is he for sure the guy in Indiana, or does Taven Jackson or Tyler Cherry, like, do they actually have a real shot at this? I think this may be more of a competition than folks think.
Yeah, I would say it's probably 70% Rourke. I think Jackson and Cherry have like an uphill battle. I do think that's why they bring Rourke in. I think if you're Kurt Signetti, you're coming from James Madison. Like your quarterback at James Madison was also in the portal, and you went and got Curtis Rourke. So I think that gives you some sort of inkling as to how Signetti feels about the situation.
I have no idea what to think about Minnesota.
Buddy, don't. It's Can I just talk about the Rutgers Minnesota shuffle?
Please.
Real quick. So Rutgers last year has oh god, the kid's name is totally escaping.
Kelly McManus. Oh no, Wimsat.
Yeah, Gavin Wimsatt, who completes 46% of his passes. Rutgers says, man, we need to do better than that. Let's go get Ethan Kaliakmanis, who completed 52% of his passes. It is an ugly situation. So I don't know what Minnesota's going to do. I'm assuming they're going to hand off a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Max Bosmer and Drake Lindsay, those are two names that I have to Google.
The Big Ten QB situation is just wild this year.
It makes me kind of hesitant to speak with great confidence on most of these teams because like, there's a large distribution of outcomes that could occur on many of these. I will harken back to summer school from last year when Ryan Burns of our Minnesota side on 24/7 Sports was like, hey, they actually do like Kaliakmanis quite a bit for the long term because he does have like a big time arm type stuff. But like this is probably not the year to buy in on Minnesota. So he kind of nailed that. He's like, 24 is a little better than 23 for the Gophers. Now he transferred out. Things went a lot worse than I think they thought it was going to go.
What conference has the most stable quarterback situations? Because obviously we're just going to get to Big Ten and then we're going to get out of here, save the rest for tomorrow. So we've got so many questions in the Big Ten. Where do we not have as many questions?
SEC
returns.
You've got Beck. You've got Dart.
I would also say the SEC has situations.
Got Milrow. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got situations like Vandegrift at Kentucky where you do kind of assume that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
You've got at a place like South Carolina, you think that, they're going to go with Sellers or, something along that line. You've got Brady Cook at Missouri.
He's back. Yeah, it's probably SEC's probably.
And at Oklahoma and Tennessee, I think you can read into them not bringing in anybody to compete with the young guys. Like
right, Jackson and Nico. This is
Nico season,
time,
baby.
He signed a 5-star freshman in the limited appearances that we saw, and they both look very good. And
the expectation for Nussmeier.
Yep.
Cannon.
I mean, at LSU kept him around when he could probably have started for a lot of teams last year. So that probably tells you something about what they think of him. And they let Howard walk to Ole Miss, the 5-star they signed in that class.
Yeah. There's probably some Big 12, a little bit of certainty there. But
yeah, Cam Rising, Noah Fafita, those guys are all back. But there are also
trends that Jackson Arnold category in terms of not talent necessarily, but certainty. I think he was going to beat out Howard at Kansas State this year.
But you've also got like Jalen Daniels. Is he going to be healthy? Big question mark there. Hoover at TCU just got hurt. He's going to be missing some time. So definitely some injury-related questions on that side as well. So, yeah, maybe the answer is SEC, but Big 12 would like a word as well.